Running Lean is a book written by Ash Maurya of Spark 59. Many people recommend that book over the Lean Startup because Running Lean is a bit more actionable, it's more like hands-on. Lean Startup is more about like the abstract concepts and the philosophy. Running Lean is more like hands-on, clear examples, clear recommendations. So the presentation about Running Lean is about 10 steps to product market fit. Product market fit is a concept that basically means some people say if you build a product or you build a startup, you're either before product market fit or you're after product market fit. And product market fit is like the point in time where you realize you have a product that you can actually sell on the market. And before that, you have a product that not that many people are interested. And after that, you have a product that actually like the market accepts and you can easily get into the market. And it turns out it's really hard to get to that point of product market fit, and these are like 10 tips that you can follow to get there faster. Like I mentioned yesterday, 90% of startups fail. It means like 9 out of 10 startups fail. There's reports on that from a group called Startup Genome Project. And if you look into detail, usually that means not the startup fails, but usually the product fails. We'll look into that later. Also, around 66% of the teams that work on a product drastically change the product or the way they think about the market, or they change things, assumptions that they had in the beginning, which is really high. The Lean Startup or Running Lean is about getting from a plan that you have, like a plan that you initially started out, to something that actually works. It's not about making the plan that you started out with work. It's more like finding something that works. So you like, it sounds simple, but it's a huge deal. If you really understand that, you're really better off than what we started off like a few years ago. It means that you accept that the things you tend to think and tend to believe in the beginning might not be the truth actually. So you're in the mindset of being flexible about what the reality actually is. The Lean Startup is like a process or like a set of tools that helps you find something that really works, and that saves a lot of time, saves a lot of resources. And a plan that works basically is something that's scalable, repeatable, and that has a business model. And on that journey, the product market fit is like the holy grail that everybody tries to get their hands on. And it's interesting to boil success down to the concept of product market fit, because product market fit is something that happens earlier than success. Or you could say, like, if you're looking for success, you're actually looking for product market fit. And it helps to understand your current situation, or like the situation before product market fit. Some people say, like, if you don't know that if you have product market fit or not, you don't have product market fit. Because if you have product market fit, people will like throw money at you and try to like get the product out of you. So the challenge basically for every startup is get to product market fit because you run out of money, or because before you run out of resources. To go there, you basically document your plan. So you start out with something, then you try to identify what the risks are in that plan, and once you identify the risks, validated the risks, you can start to double down on the things that work. So it's a process of starting somewhere, understanding what works, doubling down on what works, understanding what doesn't work, de-emphasizing, putting less resources on things that don't work. Sounds really simple, it's actually not that easy. There's another aspect that's really important to understand is that if you have a smart person, the person will be able to convince you and tell you things that actually don't have anything to do with reality. And entrepreneurs have to be really good at that, and usually are really good at that. And it's really important if you're selling something, that you have this like Steve Jobsian reality distortion field, that you can sell your product, sell your vision to get customers on board, to get people on board to join your company, to get investors on board, to get partners on board. But at the same time, it distracts you because if you believe all the time what you're telling, that everything is super awesome, then you tend to not look at the problems you're facing and the things you actually need to ask questions about, if it's actually true. Another concept is like the business model versus the business plan. So the business plan usually is like the 20 or 50 sheet document that you have that people want from you. Sometimes like investors like really like want to see a business plan. But the important thing for you to understand is that you actually want to have a business model, and that it's similar to the plan A. Usually you start out with something, with a business model, and it turns out that's not the business model you will have 1 or 2 years later. And also it turns out business plan is hard to change, hard to share with people. Whereas if you have a business model, you can put it on a business model canvas, change it, adapt it, move post-it notes around, and that's what we will do later in the workshop. That's basically how a business model canvas looks like. It's a sheet of paper. We have like one on the whiteboard. It's a sheet of paper that has different areas, and like some areas of channels are about how you get your customers. There's a segment about revenue streams. That's more like how are you going to make the money. The left side is more like what is costing me money. So where's the money coming from? Where is it going? Where do we spend it? It has one area for customer segments. Like even if you have a product where you say like our product is in like the market for our product is everyone in the world. Usually you also have different customer segments, or some of the segments are the ones you will focus on earlier and other segments you will focus on later. Unfair advantage, blah, blah, blah. You have different aspects, and usually all of these topics are covered in a business plan. But if you put them all on one sheet, it's easier to understand, it's easier to share with an advisor, it's easier to like erase parts of it, shuffle things around. And another thing that's really important to understand is there's one thing, like one column is called the solution, and that's what you usually think of what your product is. So you build a product that solves a certain problem. And usually, or at least like what I did in the beginning is I only focused on the solution. Because I have engineering background, like I'm a builder, I want to solve problems with code. That's my world, like the solution, the product itself is my world. And it's really important to understand that the solution is not the product. Your product is not the product. Actually, your product is your whole business model is your product. Just to give you a brief example is, if I have like a project management tool, like we're working on a project management tool, actually the revenue model, or the way we define that we want to get paid by the customer, will dictate which features make sense and which features don't make sense. So the revenue stream is a huge part of the product. also the channels, how we acquire customers and how the sources of our customers fit into the product is interlinked with code that we actually need to write and with marketing that we need to do. And if we do a bad job in marketing, we will attract people that will think our product is a solution for a problem. They will find out it's not, because we did a poor job in explaining the product, and then they will rate the product in a bad way. So actually understanding that like your product is consists of all these areas. Second step in the journey to product market fit is don't get too attached to one plan. Don't get too attached to plan A, because chances are plan A doesn't work. And it's not a big deal to not be attached to plan A, because if you're not attached to plan A, and you find out plan A was the right solution, everything works, right? If you don't find out plan A is the right thing, and it's good to be not too attached to the thing. There's one saying by a guy, I unfortunately can't remember his name, but I remember the saying is, marry the problem, don't marry the solution. So get really attached about the problem you want to solve, but not about the way you think is the solution at the moment. And I think that captures it really well. Because if you're passionate about the problem space, you will see if there's another solution coming up that's better than what you already have. If it comes from the competition, it's okay that it comes from the competition. If it's your own idea that you have under the shower, you will realize that it's not competing with the solution you have, because you don't care about the solution, you care about solving a problem. So in a way, if you have many of these business model canvases filled out, or different versions of the business model canvas filled out, you will find out that some of them don't make any sense. And you can advance and discard versions of the business model that don't make any sense, and then you advance over time and find out different solutions. And a concept that's also very important to understand is that since you have limited resources, you can't tackle all the things at the beginning. You don't have enough money, you don't have enough resources to actually do that. So by filling out the business model canvas, we will very fast understand what the main risks are that you have. And usually, like when we filled out the business model canvas for the first part, there were some columns that were blank, or that we had a hard time filling out. So in our case, 3 engineers, all of the there was one segment that's called channels. We didn't even understand what the word means. So we had a hard time filling it out. And then someone explained to us, like, there's marketing channels, and basically a channel is like a source where people come from, or you can pursue a channel, spend money on a channel, spend time on a channel, and make more people come through the channel. And if you have a list of channels, you can try to figure out which channel probably is more important or which is not more important, and you can start measuring it. And we actually had a hard time filling out the column at all. So that would be one of the red areas. If you have a hard time filling it out, or you have an easy time filling it out but don't have any idea about the stuff that you're writing down, then it's a risk. And a risk usually is something that you want to focus on in the beginning. And it's also easy said, and I know we personally didn't spend enough time on it early enough, and many other founders I know tend to not tackle the riskiest parts in the beginning, because, to be honest, it's not a lot of fun, because you have to understand that you don't know anything about that area, or you need advice from someone else. But it's really hard to do because it's not something you're familiar with. But tackling the riskiest parts first will save you a lot of time, because you don't find out 2 years later that something is actually a problem. Sounds easy, but yeah. hard. Then there's another concept. It's like the 3 stages of the startup, and here's like where we all see product market fit again. So some people say it's an abstract concept, so we could discuss about whether it makes a lot of sense or not. But you could say there's 3 stages for a startup. The first stage is the problem-solution fit stage. So it's about understanding whether the problem you're trying to solve actually is a problem, or if it's actually a problem, if you can actually solve the problem with a solution. So in the first stage, you try to find that out, because as long as you don't have figured that out, it's a waste of resources to go to the next stage. And the next stage is you already have the problem validated, so you know it's actually a problem for people, and you kind of understand that your solution solves that problem, or at least makes the problem smaller. Then there's like, that could still, even if you have a great solution to a real problem, there's the risk that there's no market for it. No one would give you money for it. So then it makes sense to go to the next stage and try to figure out, is there a market for my solution? Is the problem painful enough or not? And if you find out there's a problem that there's no market for, then you spend time on trying to understand how you can solve the problem even better. If you need to change your solution that it solves the problem better, or you alter the problem in a way that the problem is even bigger. And once you figure that out, so you have a solution for an actual problem where people are willing to give you money for, then you can advance to the third stage, which is like the scaling stage, where it actually makes sense to put a lot of resources, or the majority of resources, in selling the product, getting new customers on board. It's no longer main focus to spend resources on the product itself. And it's like, it sounds really, like in hindsight, also for me, it sounds obvious, makes a lot of sense, it's logical. But if you try to imagine what happens if you don't follow these stages, you see some startups spending a lot of money on marketing in the first stage. So people get like funding and spend like over 50% of the funding on marketing at a time where they don't even know whether there's a market for their product. They don't even at that time know if the problem actually is worth solving, or if the solution they have actually solved the problem. And that's a way to burn money really fast. So if they would have spent the money on the engineering resources, or at least trying to figure out whether the solution actually solves the problem, then the money would be better spent. And it can create something, it's called success theater, or vanity success. Because if you spend a lot of money on marketing, you will get customers, but it's hard to then retain those customers, and it's a concept that we will also look into later. Yeah. Do I have a problem worth solving? Have I built something people actually want? And last question is like, how do I accelerate growth? What are the channels that convert best? What are the next channels I need to pursue? Is it through inbound marketing, outbound marketing, sales? It's then something, that's what you try to figure out at that stage. And another interesting aspect is, once you're in the first 2 stages, it's really valuable to work with qualitative data. So you try to actually ask people and talk to people and try to or look at how they use your product, and try to find out, like, meet 5 people, try to understand from 5 people what they're saying. That's not the area where you try to work too much with metrics and statistics, because statistics give you like indications of what's going on, but they don't answer the question why something is happening. Whereas in the first two stages, it's all about the why. You try to understand why people stop using your product after 2 weeks, or why they sign up and then don't click somewhere. It's mostly like user experience problems, and it's problems about like explaining what the product does, and it's a problem of do I actually solve a problem or not. That's something metrics only can like indicate, but really understanding or making the next step of now I understand what should I do next, that's something you understand if you watch people and talk to people. So the focus is on validated learning. You will do a lot of experiments because you're at that point. It makes no sense to get super attached to your plan A. It makes no sense to be like defensive about, but I know this will work, I will stick to it. That's more the area where you deeply care about the problem and try to find out a solution that really helps people. And the scale stage is the stage where you actually focus on growth. You have validated that your solution works, you have validated the solution gets bought, and you can focus on growing what you've built. You can focus on optimizations, so you no longer focus on experiments and trying out new things. So you still might do that, but it's not like what you're focusing on. And then the terrain is more quantitative. So then you're talking like Google or Amazon area where you actually track like all the conversions, you track click flows, you try to understand like from behavior patterns how to improve your product. And it's not like, just to understand, it's not like that the idea is to don't do that at all in the first two stages, and also vice versa, don't do any experiments in the third stages. It's just about like what your focus should be on, or what you should spend a bit more resources on. Another really important point is focus on the right macro metrics. So that's something we will go into in the third slide deck. There's some metrics that are called the R funnel or the pirate metrics funnel, because it's like if you take the first letters, it's called like R, like a pirate would like speak, and it's about acquisition, like how do people find you, activation, how like it's like sign-ups, or what's the first experience of the user that activates him, that like makes him engage with the product. Retention, are people sticky? Do they return to the product? Do they become like regular users, or do they like go away? Revenue is about are you actually making money out of it or not? And referral is like the viral part. Is the product good enough that they not only stick around but actually tell other people? And there's some products where referral is really easy to do, and some other products where it's really hard to do. But since with Kissmetrics, Mixpanel, Google Analytics, you could potentially track everything, and some startups actually spend a lot of time tracking and analyzing everything, it might make sense to just have like a checklist to understand, like, do we track acquisition, do we track activation, do we track retention, do we track revenue, because it will tell you a lot of things. And activation and retention are indicators. Like if you have great numbers in activation and retention, then you have a really valuable product. It's just like the metrics will never tell you why you have a great product. They will just say you have a great product. The other two, acquisition in the front of the funnel and referral on the end of the funnel, if you have great numbers on those, then there will be like a viral loop. You will be able to grow fast. But there's like strings attached, because if activation and retention is really poor, being good in acquisition and referral won't help you. And we have some examples of these apps. There's an app called speeddate.com, and like some of the Facebook gaming apps that are really pushy about referrals and acquisition. They have like growth rates like a hockey stick, and once they've reached hundreds of millions of users, which they couldn't retain the users, it suddenly drops off. Like, it's like an airplane that just falls out of the sky. And that's something you, if you measure not only acquisition and referral, and don't only focus on growth and acquisition and referral, but also on activation and retention, that's something you see very soon. So you see it in the first 2 weeks of doing marketing. You understand you probably should down the doors, you shouldn't let anybody in anymore because you don't want to like grow fast and then have the product fall down. Easy concept is getting like people do that wrong who got millions of funding all the time. So it's an easy concept, easy to avoid. Don't be one of those. The third concept is about maximizing for speed, learning, and focus. Also another easy concept that's hard to internalize. So all of these things probably took me like 3 or 4 years to kind of internalize, and I'm not thinking we're doing a really brilliant job on all of those. So that's basically the build, measure, learn feedback cycle of the lean startups. The concept is basically that if you follow like agile software development practices, you no longer build something waterfall style, work on it for 5 years and then release it and then learn whether people want it or not, which is high risk. You try to like have Scrum sprints or use like a Kanban board and have continuous releases. Every time something is finished, you show it people. So that's what gives you speed because you learn faster. Speed comes from the iteration. Learning doesn't necessarily happen if you ship faster. It's just an opportunity to learn faster. And the question what you're building and the ideas that actually get executed on depend on focus. And there's a nice graphic by Ash that basically visualizes that if you're going very fast, so you do many iterations, you're super agile development shop, and you focus a lot, then you will run in circles if you don't learn anything. So if you're really fast in shipping code, if you show it to your customers all the time, and you always build just a few things that you're really like engaged about, but you don't spend any time on learning, you will just be really fast. Just be really fast and shake your tail. If you focus a lot and learn a lot, you will probably run out of resources because it takes you too much time. If you're really fast and you learn a lot, but you don't focus because you're all over the place and put resources in every opportunity that you have, then you're probably optimizing too early, trying to focus on too many things at the same time, can't really focus on one thing. That's also something that helped us just to realize like where we are spending most time on, if we are actually good in shipping fast or if we are actually also learning. What helps with learning is coming up with hypotheses. So instead of saying we will become experts and thought leaders in our area, so if it's a sports app, we will write a lot of blog posts about sports and we will become thought leader and that will drive traffic. Trying to be more specific, we will actually write a blog post and it should drive 100 signups. And it's not about being right, it's just about being, formulating a hypothesis so you can then try to understand if what happened matches what you thought will happen. Similar to like if you're from an engineering background, if you follow Scrum sprints, there's an idea of trying to make estimates about how many things you can put into a sprint. And it's not that much about being right, it's just about learning how good you're at estimating things. And that putting out like not only technical hypotheses or productivity hypotheses, but also like in the business part of your startup helps you a lot in learning, because if you don't hit over 100, then you know a blog post is worth like 50, but you know it's worth about 50. And in the beginning, or in the beginning you don't know, and if you don't care about it, you will also don't recognize it. Sixth point is architecting for learning. So there, we had posters as an example, and to be honest, I can't remember why. So if you're focusing on trying to understand how like customer acquisition works, it already helped to have like the key metrics that you're like the funnel that you're trying to understand, the points that we had in earlier. And if you're just focusing on acquisition, it's easier to drill down. So you're not trying to measure like something opaque like success. You're just trying to understand how our acquisition works. So acquisition in that example works like people come to the landing page, then they see like other pages like the tour of the product or the about page, then they will advance to the pricing page, and then they go to sign up. So you define a funnel, and then you just measure like from the 100% of people who hit the landing page, how many go down to sign up. And then you have like a number, and then the number could be like 10% per week. Like each week, all of the traffic that hit the landing page, 10% convert to signing up. So you have an acquisition rate of 10%. And once you measure something like that, you can see like if you focus on acquisition and you say like next 2 sprints, we will try to improve that. You will see then if after the sprints, the number went up from 10% to 12%. And if it went up, then you did a good job. If not, then you can try to find out what happened or why it didn't have an impact. And the funny thing is, once you focus on something and try to understand and try to make it better, usually it gets better. You will learn a lot. And one example for the lean startup, or for the running lean book, was that he put out a landing page with a title, with a description about why you should buy the book, with an opportunity to buy the book. There's also a pricing page. There was the sign up step, and he measured and tweaked the wording, tweaked the sign up steps, and tried to understand like how he can improve the conversion rate. Architecting for speed. So that's first, like previous step was how to actually like architect for learning, now for speed. Usually if you change something in your product, that's when you learn. So you have some learning when you are in the idea phase and you think we should do that feature. You try to specify the feature. You will discuss about the feature, so you will have some learning there already, especially if you have good user experience, good product people that will be learning in that area. During development, you also learn some things. So when you move from the idea stage to actually working on the feature, you will learn that some of the things you specified don't actually work like you thought it would work. So you have some learning in development. Once development is ready, you move to quality assurance. So some people then in quality assurance, or the developer who then does quality assurance, will find out some user experience problems or some bugs. So you have some learning there as well. But where you really learn the most is once it's in front of your customers. Because once the feature is in front of customers and suddenly retention gets better, or people refer to the product to their friends and they didn't before, then there's something you can learn. So the idea is to make the process of something going from requirements to release as fast as possible, to shorten the cycle time, shorten the release cycles. And something like Scrum sprints and agile development go a long way in that direction. So you have like, you ship monthly, or you ship bi-weekly, or you ship weekly. And something like Kanban helps you to continuously ship things. So that's like a simplified Kanban board. It's basically like a whiteboard where you have post-it notes, and you have one area that's the backlog or like list of ideas you have. Then you have one big area that's in progress, and another area that says you're done. And one card, one post-it note represents one feature you're working on, and you will move a card along the process. So it moves from the backlog to in progress and to done. And usually you have something like a work in progress limit, and that's where the focus comes in again. If you try to learn as fast as possible, you should ship as fast as possible. And if you have a team of 3 engineers and you're working on 10 features at the same time, chances are the engineers will context switch all the time, and it will take longer for anything to ship. So the idea is to understand like on how many things it actually makes sense to work simultaneously. And for 3 engineers, probably makes sense to work only on 3 or maybe 4 things at the same time. So you see, like in the in-progress stage, you have like there's a 1 there, and for 3 engineers, maybe it's a 3, and you always make sure that there are not more than 3 post-it notes, not more than 3 features worked on at the same time. Because once a feature is ready, you can ship the next release. And if you can finish 1 feature per day, you can ship once a day. If you work on low-hanging fruit, like really small changes, you can ship 20 times a day. There's no need to wait until the sprint is finished. The done stage usually is then the stage where you usually don't say it's done, because then it's actually when it starts to be really interesting. So that's also a mind change that I had to make as an engineer. Feature is ready according to specification, my job is done. But from a business point of view, that's only where it gets really interesting, because once the feature is in the product and people interact with it, then it's time to understand whether that feature actually made the product better or worse. And that's also the hardest part for me as a product manager, is pulling features out of the product again that we see that people didn't like. Some people request features, and once they get the features, they like the product less than they had it before. And that's the hardest part, spending weeks on developing a feature and then removing it again. Something I need to get better at as well. So the idea is that once it's finished, you're actually starting to learn. So some people replace the done stage with a validation stage, or they add a validation stage after the done stage. So then it says backlog, or like ideas, in progress, validation, and done. And then just when the feature is shipped, it's live in the product, or you have had an update in the App Store, the feature still lives on the board, just in the validation stage. And sometimes it stays there for 2 weeks, just to be reminded of it, and you have like your Scrum meetings, and then after a few days, you say, okay, we really believe this feature actually made the product better, and then it's done. And if some people raise second thoughts and they say, okay, I feel the product got worse, maybe we should pull it out, or we should change this part and then it actually works. It's a good area where you don't overcommit. It's not like it's with the plan A. You're not overly attached to the solution you had in mind. You're still free to change it. And that actually gets really easy once you get into the mood of shipping things multiple times a day or multiple times a week, because you can change things all the time. You're in that mindset of change is like, it's not something that makes a huge impact, it's something that you do all the time. That's another concept that took me a long time to understand, is validate qualitatively and verify quantitatively. And it basically means that it's way easier to quickly validate something, to understand if it works, if you watch people use it. So if you ship a new feature and you just look over their shoulder, do a user experience test, or like just show to random people your mobile app, you will see them interacting with your feature, you will understand after you ship the feature what you should change to make it even better, and it's really fast learning. But if you're looking at like measuring metrics, like trying to, like what we do is we measure revenue and the lifetime value of a customer. So a customer signs up, he pays us every month. If he stays for 10 years, he's worth more than a person that we lose after a few weeks. And that's something where it's really hard to be fast, to make fast decisions. Because if we change a feature now, there's no way for us to immediately know if it changes the lifetime value of the customer. We would have to wait 10 years to understand whether it actually made a huge difference. And that's just the feedback cycle is too slow. So you try to understand qualitatively whether it made sense or not, and still measure quantitatively, looking backwards on your statistics, whether you improved from month to month. And then you can, like, every few months you look at your numbers and then you try to understand why they got better or why they got worse. That's the data. When you verify the data, that's where you actually have proof, and the qualitative area is really fast. It's not that exact, but it gives you answers really fast. And you can the good thing is to combine both of them. So if you have a dashboard of only a few things you want to look at, you usually have like your revenue statistics, very broad statistics like acquisition, referral, activation and retention rates. But you also have like you don't only focus on that, you also have on the dashboard like customer support tickets or tweets about your product, something that's more qualitatively, that actually says something and not only indicates something. And the last part is really making a habit out of not sticking with plan A. Actually make a system out of testing your model. So if you have these lean canvas business models, you have risky parts, the red parts, and you work on the red parts, you tackle the red parts. So for us that would be channels. We don't know how to fill out channels. We need to find someone who can explain to us what channels are. And then we can look at the competition, what they use as a channel, and what channels from the competition work. And then some of the red areas, once you actually focused on them and got help with them, they become green areas because you actually understand them now. And some of the areas stay red because even after you understood them, they're still too risky, or after you understood them, you understood there's nothing you can do about that, but you can go another way. And then after some time, your business model canvas you will understand all the areas better and better, and you will also get better and better data and better conversion rates on all of the things you're tracking. And in the end, hopefully you have a green canvas, and that's when your business, that's the proof that your business didn't fail. And it's a journey of learning and improving, continuously improving, and the business model canvas and putting post-it notes on it is a good tool to remember that you can change everything. And it's more about the journey of understanding and less about making plan A work and try to run through the wall. Yeah, there's the Running Lean book. I think you can buy it on Kindle and on other bookstores. You can also buy the Dead Tree copy through Amazon. And there's also like a first version of the book that's, I believe, is free for download. So there's a second version of the book that's like a bit like better copywriting and like the second version of the book, but the first version is also really good. So if you just want to go through the book, just download the first version. Not sure how I'm doing on time. I think we should be faster. And now for something completely different but related. It's probably in all the talks, all the slide decks, there's a ton of information that, like I said, I needed years to internalize, and probably too much all in one day. But you will have the slides afterwards, have resources, pointers to the resources. The goal is basically that once you face a certain problem in your startup life cycle, you will just remember that there was something about that in the slides, and you will get back to the slides and have some pointers where you can get more input.
Is the link the slide to Tosh? What do you have there?
Yeah, that's the URL, sli.do, slido/tosh. It's done by Peter. Maybe you want to like briefly mention what like the app does.
Both the slide share links are there already, and also your slides at the end are there right now. So you can go there and you can ask questions if you have any questions for Tosh. You can ask there.
Also, like please feel free to interrupt me anytime and ask questions. That's usually way more interesting than what I'm talking. So the first presentation, like I said, was about running lean and all the concepts, and now it's hopefully something that's more actually usable, actionable. It's about customer development. That's a slide deck from Rod Fitzpatrick.
Actually, can I jump in? Like,
yeah.
I had some question, I posted it there.
Awesome, yeah.
One thing was about the hypothesis, like how do you come up with a number if you really have no clue? Like it happens to us that we want to be specific, but we have just no idea at all, like what should be the number. Then does it have any sense to validate the hypothesis, which...
That's a great question. I'm struggling with that also a lot, so my hypotheses that I'm writing down are also probably too vague. I think like what helped me was also don't being too attached about making the right guess. Sometimes you can't know, and usually you don't know. But just think about the ballpark, and it's not like hitting, like it's not about like being right. It's more like just having a number, and that will remind you that once you tested it, that the number is something you care about. That's it. I think it's like a learning technique that afterwards, if it's not 100 but it's 30, then you will remember 30, and then you have something like you internalize that. And if you next time you think about content marketing, you have some understanding about like what one blog post can bring, and usually it's just like a ballpark number because probably not every blog post performs the same.
But is it like, shouldn't there be some, at least in my thinking it was that, okay, if I'm going to put some number to the hypothesis, maybe it should be a number which is like the minimum number where it makes sense to do this stuff. So if it brings less than 20 sign-ups, then it didn't
great point. Yeah, great
sense
point.
to write it.
But that's also hard.
Very hard.
Yeah, then it's also hard to come up with the number because, like you said, it's hard to measure. Like you want to optimize the sign-up conversion, and you think this will increase the sign-up conversion like by 2%, and then it did it by 1%. It's still like that's still better than before, but you still don't know if spending the time on that was better than spending the time on something else. But I think it's more like it's something that was stressful for me a long time. But I think it's a good idea to detach your emotions from it. It's just like you learn. Like the interesting part is that you did it, and then you understood like it's better, or it's better than you thought, or it's worse than you thought. It's still hard to actually put like a money number on it, or like a grade on whether you did a good job by pursuing that or not. It's more like getting into the habit of saying we expect this to happen. Okay, it didn't, and usually you're wrong. Yeah, usually you're wrong, and the idea is to try more things, and yeah, even maybe even celebrate that you're not wrong all the time. It's not like a shame to like predict something that doesn't turn out. That's usually what happens. But you want to have like a culture of people being willing to try to predict something and be curious about what happens, and not only about predicting things you already know. Because if you only predict things you already know, then you're probably not testing things you don't have an idea about. Are there,
Oh, there was one.
so this slide deck is about, oh, it's the wrong slide, sorry. Just 1 second. This is the right one. So this is basically by Rob Fitzpatrick. He's a really funny guy. It's about how to talk to your customers, and talking to your customers usually is one of the qualitative things that you can learn a ton of if you actually talk to them, but you can also waste a lot of time if you do it the wrong way. And I've wasted, like, I don't even want to I don't even want to aggregate all the hours I wasted. Don't want to know. So the slide deck hopefully will save you weeks, if not months, that I would have needed. So why bother talking to people at all? We could do other things than talk to people. We could build software, we could do marketing. Why should we actually talk to people? And he had a funny slide. I'm not, like, that's one of the slide decks that I'm really not that familiar with, but I think that's his bank account statement, and it says like it doesn't have a lot of money left. And I think that was like his reason for himself to, I should have talked to my potential customers, I should have understood before I've wasted a lot of money. Good reason. That's the slide I don't understand that much. Basically, that was like the huge epiphany moment for me, that talking to customers, there are like two modes you can be in. There's the selling mode, that's the stage on the right hand side. That's about like, I will sell you my idea and I will try to validate whether I can sell it to you or not. And there's the discovery mode, that's the first mode. That's like, I try to understand from you if I'm on the right track or not. And it's really hard if you talk to customers to be in both modes at the same time. And if you're in both modes at the same time, usually you're more in the selling mode, and that's the mode where you won't learn anything, or it's really hard to learn. And that's something that we did wrong so many times, and that's also what I'm seeing like as a mentor on startup events, that people are really passionate about their solution, and they also understand the problem, and sometimes I'm a potential customer for them, and instead of listening to what I'm saying, they will sell their product to me all the time. And when I'm saying, I have this problem, that maybe like, to think of a concrete example, when we had the finance session, I came up with the problem that I don't have a good understanding of where I spend my money. I can look in a bank account and understand, like, I see all the in and out of money, but I don't have like an aggregate view of, I spend 30% on food, and on food I spend most of it on cheese or something like that. I don't have a good analytics understanding. And if I would talk like to the bank person startup who tries to sell me the current solution they have, he will try to convince me that I don't need what I'm just saying because I have all the like money incomes and where I spent the money. I have all the data in there, so it's actually not a problem for me. And he tries to convince me that his current solution is the best solution, whereas he could listen and understand what I'm actually wanting. And even if I only articulate it very poorly and I just say like, I don't have an overview about my money, he could try to understand what I'm actually like demanding. And maybe I don't want an analytical solution. Maybe I only want an app that buzzes and tells me you should spend less on cheese when I'm standing in front of cheese, or I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but that's the interesting concept, that when you're in selling mode, you're not open to understand what the person actually wants. And the person, like, chances are I don't even know what I want. But that's the job of the product person to innovate for me and try to understand what I actually want. So in the first mode you actually learn, In the second mode, you confirm. And if you spend all your time in the selling and confirming mode, maybe the only thing you confirm is, I can sell it if I'm really convincing, or I can't sell it, but you don't learn much from that. Whereas if you're in the learning mode, you actually try to understand what the person is saying. And to like what really motivated me was, so like the first version is like, first mode is you're in asking mode, second mode is you're in selling mode, you're talking all the time. You can also think about like an analogy would be a good TV moderator. Like the top TV moderators are the ones who are not talking. It's like they're sitting there asking like a brief question and then the other person is talking all the time. And for some reason, they are really good at making, like facilitating a conversation where they don't talk at all. And we will get into some tips how to actually pull that off. But what was really worthwhile for me, where I got really motivated, why it makes a lot of sense, even if it's really frustrating and hard to stay in the asking and learning mode, because you will learn many things that you don't want to know, is that all of the things that people tell you, you can use for marketing later on. Because, for example, like we're selling a productivity and project management solution, and we're really deep into the topic, and we will, like, if I talk to someone about what we're building, chances are I'm talking too abstract, I'm using words that the person wouldn't use, I'm using words that the person wouldn't search for, whereas if I listen to people, they will have the chance to describe what my solution is in their words. And that's the same words I can use for landing pages, same words I can use on Twitter, same words I can use on the newsletters, I can use on ads. Chances are they will convert way, 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 way better. So even if you hate all the talking to customer part of it, that's something to look forward for. You will not only make your product better and learn faster, you will also have an easier time selling the product. First part, learning part, is about, do we understand this industry? And does anybody care at all? Sometimes you're super attached to a problem, super attached to a solution, but no one else is. That's a good way to find out if someone else actually cares. And the selling part is, are we actually building the right product? Are they ready to buy what we currently have? And understanding if they're actually willing to pay for it. And both things are really important, but people spend too much time on the second part. Paul Graham says, like the founder of Y Combinator says, like, build something people want. That's an easy concept. And it's also easy, someone would think, to ask someone what he wants. That's the hard part, because people will lie to you. They will lie to you because they are mean, but usually they lie to you because they are nice people. They will try to think about something, they will try to, like, if I ask someone, would you buy my product? Then they would say yes or no. If I sell them and say, like, I've spent 5 years of my life, put 5 years of my life into that product, and we polished it and polished it and polished it, and we really care about the product. Do you think my product is nice? It takes a lot of guts to say to that person, no, I don't think your baby's ugly, right? So it's really hard. You can screw these interviews up. I know I have screwed like 90% of the interviews up in some way. But there are some tricks you can use. So anybody will say your idea is great if you annoy them for long enough. It's another thing. Like, if someone annoys me all the time, I say, yeah, sounds like a good idea. Because if I don't say it's a good idea, it will sell again. That's another slide I don't really understand. Another slide. So that's the huge concept. If you ask a question, Rob Fitzpatrick calls it the mom test. if you would ask your mom, would she be able to lie to you? Because your mom probably is the person who would lie to you the most, because she is nice. And the idea is to don't formulate a question in a way that people can easily like avoid the truth. Don't ask about an opinion. That's even worse, because people have tons of opinions. It's very suggestive. It's very leading. It's easy to say yes. It's easy to say no. Also, never ask about an idea. Like that's something where we spend a lot of time, wasted a lot of time with. We have this idea. Do you think we should build it? Everybody says yes to something like that. Almost everybody says yes. Because for them, they're not really committed. For you, that means you ask 5 people say yes, you build it, it doesn't work, nobody cares. You want to avoid that. What's a good way of pursuing it is asking about their life. Ask open-ended questions. It's also what the interviewing person say. They don't ask leading questions and they don't ask closed questions. These questions are questions where a person can say yes, no, they can say 50, they can say yesterday. Open questions are questions where people then start to tell a story. So if I try to understand, if I have a mobile app that helps people to find a good party location, I won't learn much if I say I have this app, would you use it? But I would learn much if I would ask the person last time you went out, where did you go? Or last time you spent more than $50 on a weekend, how did the weekend look like? The most important thing in that question is you're asking about something specific, but you're asking about something open-ended. And that's a question that is really hard to lie about, even if I'm nice to you, because I'm thinking of a specific event and I can talk to you about the specific event. Whereas if I'm asking, with how many people do you usually go out and party, then a nice person will try to do you a favor and will try to aggregate in their head, and they will say last week I went out with 5 people, and the week before I went out with 1 person, and the week before I went out with 20 people, and they will say, usually I go out with 10 people. And they will say something that's actually true, but you're not interested in that kind of average truth, because then you will put down in your notes, this person goes out with 10 people. And you probably are more interested in how does the evening look like when he goes out with 1 person, and how does the evening look like if he goes out with 20 people, and what are the problems in that scenario. So you have a specific scenario. And another funny example is with a company that they build milkshakes. So it's a milkshake company. It's like going to McDonald's and you have a milkshake. No, they only sell milkshakes. And they made many customer interviews, customer surveys, and the people, they asked them if they want more fruit in the milkshakes or less fruit in the milkshakes. And the people said it's fine like it is. They don't want more pieces, bigger pieces, or they also don't want less pieces. And once they drilled down, they understood that the people are buying the milkshakes to fulfill different jobs depending on what time they buy the milkshakes. So if they buy the milkshakes in the morning, most of the people who are customers in the morning are commuters who need something when they drive for 30 minutes in the car. They need a solution that is not makes the boredom go away. So they're bored in the 30 minutes, so they need a solution. And in that space, the milkshake competes with Snickers, competes with a donut, competes with many other breakfasty junk food substitutions. But milkshake does a good job because with the milkshake you can drive, you don't get nasty fingers, and the interesting part, like interesting aspect for that, for doing a good job with the milkshake at that point is having huge chunks of fruit in there, because then it's an interesting experience to drink it. Because sometimes it goes fast, and then sometimes it clogs, and then you have a fruit thingy, and you can actually drink it for 30 minutes. And then the same person in the afternoon, in a different scenario, that's where they sell the most fruit drinks in the afternoon, is they're there with the children. And the child always says, like, can I have chocolate, can I have this toy, can I have that toy, can I have that toy? And the parents always say, no, 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 you can't. And then there's the setting of they have a meal, and then there's the opportunity for the child asks again, can I have a milkshake? And then the parent is already exhausted from all the asking in the day, and they say, like, okay, you can have the milkshake, parent no longer feels guilty. That's the milkshake job in that scenario. But then having a milkshake that lasts for 30 minutes is a pain, because you already have eaten, you want to go home, but your child sucks on the milkshake for 30 or 45 minutes. That's the point in time where you don't want a milkshake that lasts for 30 minutes, you want a milkshake that's small size, you want it to last only 1 minute. And the person that they did, like the people that did their survey with, tried to answer in an honest way. So they tried to think, like, do I want a milkshake that has huge chunks, or do I want to have a milkshake that has no chunks at all? And they tried to give an honest answer. They aggregated the different scenarios, and they said the perfect milkshake would be something that's in between, because it's not like they tried to minimize the worst case scenario. So they said, like, if I have like a medium chunky milkshake, it would do an okay job in the morning, and it would do an okay job in the afternoon. And after drilling down and actually understanding the problem, they figured out that they can do 2 milkshakes that solve different problems way better than the current milkshake does, and increase revenue. Only because they didn't screw up the interviews. So ask about specific scenarios, but let people talk, because chances are you don't even know what you try to learn. You want to, like, explore and understand what they're talking. And another interesting technique is, like, what the moderators do. You will, like, after I told you, you will see it on TV all the time. One trick to keep people talking is just repeat the last sentence they said. So I'm talking to the person that went out. I said, like, when's the last time you went out with one person, your best buddy? Thursday. So the person says Thursday. So I'm saying Thursday. Then the person goes on and says, like, yeah, Thursday we went to the bar and we had like 2 drinks. And then I say, like, oh, you went to the bar, had 2 drinks. And then it goes on. The person talks again. And that's a really easy technique to keep people talking. So you just confirm what they're saying, you confirm to them that they understood what they said, and you're projecting that you're still interested in learning more. So you're not trying to fit into a survey. So before you start the customer interviews, you don't start out with a survey where you want to have specific answers like 10 and yes or no. You want to have like different stories. You don't even want to be able to fit that into a grid later on. You want to hear actually specific stories from different people. Specifics in the past. It's really hard to make something up and lie to you if you ask about a specific event. Another thing that's usually a good question is, tell me what you've, like, if you have an existing solution, don't talk about your solution. Maybe don't even mention that you're working on a product in that space. Maybe frame the conversation as, thanks for taking the time. I'm doing like a paper or a blog post on that topic area, and I'm trying to understand what people are using at the moment and how they solve their problems. So in that way, you don't frame the conversation as I have a potential solution for you that I might sell to you. You take like the stress out of the conversation, make them comfortable also talking about your competition, make them comfortable about telling you honestly what they like and don't like. Whereas if you frame the conversation as I have a solution that you might want to buy, they might be overly harsh to their competition, and they will not only tell you the one thing that they don't like about the competition, they will really try to find 5 things that they don't like about the competition. And then you have 5 things you think are worth solving, and not only the one thing that they actually care about. There are now some examples for good and bad questions. So one question you could ask is, do you think it's a good idea? That's usually a leading question. People say yes, people say no, you don't learn much. Will you buy a product which solves this problem? People lie to you. How do you currently deal with this problem? That's a good question, because people will not think in terms of products. They will talk to you about how they work. And sometimes when telling you how they work, they don't even realize where their problems are. But they will tell you a story, and you as an observer and really curious about the problem space, you will write down like one idea after the other how to make their life easier. And especially if you're an expert like in your app space, productivity apps, sports apps, networking apps, usually you already know solutions for them that would make their work life easier even without selling them your product. Just like explaining to them how to use email filters, or how like where they could find all the events, or how to like buy the better running shoes. If you're an expert in their field, in the field you're trying to sell the app, you have like tons of opportunities to help them that you wouldn't talk about if you wouldn't ask an open-ended question. Talk me through the last time you had this problem. Also very good question, because it's a specific question for a specific event. Person will think, when was the last time, and then they will explain and talk about the last time something happened. How much will you pay for this? Hard question, because people don't, actually they don't know. They will say $10 because they're nice. Sometimes they even believe they would pay $10, and then you have the solution ready and they don't pay, right? That's an interesting question. It's like, how much money does this problem cost you? People will start to think about, sometimes they can't tell you it's $100, but they will start to think about how much is, like how painful actually is it? And if you get an answer like, I don't know, I don't care, then you also learn something. If they're really getting deep into the problem, and you still don't have like an actual number, you have a ton of a list of things they said, and you have the way they said it, and that's like if you have like a landing page, this is my product, it solves these problems. Here's what people said that had this problem earlier. I, as a potential customer, can go to the landing page, will read through the sentences, and will think like, that's the right product for me because I have exactly the same experience, and I would also phrase it in the same way. Usually people, like to go back to productivity apps, people usually are not searching for how to increase my productivity. It's more like, I have this, my inbox is overflowing, and I have too many emails, I don't know how to handle them. That's what I'm searching for. That's what I'm, when I'm searching on Google, I was like, my inbox is overflowing, what can I do? What are like filtering tactics? If you have a product that makes it unnecessary for you to use filters, then you probably won't think about using filters on your landing page. But if you use like testimonials or like stories of problems that people have, probably your landing page will include like I tried to solve this problem with filters, and my inbox was overflowing, and the filters were really hard to set up. And then I discovered your product, and now I don't even need to mess with filters because my problem went away. So you have a mirror on your landing page that uses the same language that people use to describe the problem in the interviews. Is there a budget for it? That's a good question because I would say it's maybe not a perfect question because people then say yes or they say no. But if they say no, you can try to understand why there's no budget for it, and sometimes that saves you a lot of time with the selling process. So, in enterprise software, there's usually a situation where the user experience of the product is really bad, and you have a solution with a ton of potential customers, but the customers that will use your solution are not the ones who will be able to decide whether they can buy the product or not. So it's interesting to understand, is there actually a budget for it? Then they might say no, then you can say, there's no budget for it. And then they can say, yeah, there's no budget for it because last year they cut the budget on this, and the person who signs off on these decisions is this guy, and he's not in our department. And then you learn something, and you know you need to convince this person in the hierarchy of a company. Who else should I talk to? That's a great question, especially in interviews. Every interview, every conversation that went south, and you are either you screwed up or you're sitting in front of someone who you understand after 10 seconds that's not my customer, he's not interested, even though you thought he would be interested. Ask him if he knows someone in that space. Also, if you're in startup programs where there's a lot of mentoring, in Seed Camp we had round tables, and we met 100 or 200 mentors in one day. Sometimes you don't need advice in a certain technology area, and you get CTOs on your table, and it would be funny to talk to them because they're like you, but they probably know a lot of other people that could help you. So if you have a person that you can't learn anything at that point in time, just ask if they know someone you should talk to, and then you have new lead or probably a better person to talk to. That's a way to always find someone new. So if you had a meeting with a customer, how do you understand whether you made progress or not? If the customer says, I love the idea, sounds great, not a really good sign. Sounds good, but you didn't learn anything from it. Can be that your grandmother is just really excited about that you're doing something that's passionate, but she doesn't understand what it actually is. And that's a tricky one. It's brilliant, let me know when it launches. I probably said that many times. Bad sign, because it's a compliment and a selling tactic. They're not super excited to get involved. They're more okay, work on it, improve it, and come back when you're ready, because you're not ready yet. It's not a confirmation that you're on the right track. It's just the person being nice, and it's hurtful and hard to understand the distinction, but it's useful so you don't get led down the wrong path. Because if you ask 10 people whether you should build that feature, they will say yes, awesome, and yeah, maybe the wrong path. If the person offers you to introduce you to other people when it's ready, that's in between, because he actually offers you to make introductions, so it's kind of committed, but you then can ask yourself, is there a valid reason why he can't connect you right now in that instant? Probably also a sign that you're not ready yet, from his point of view. Partial commitment is still better than no commitment. I would definitely buy that. People don't know, right? People promise something, people can't predict their future behavior. People are incapable of predicting what they will do a few weeks from now or like if they actually have the same problem 1 year from now when you're ready. So opinions, you're not looking for opinions, you're actually looking for real life experiences. And another analogy for that would be like, if you're doing customer interviews, you're more like a physician, you're more like a medical doctor that has a patient sitting in front of him, and the patient maybe says, I have a headache and I want this drug so I feel better. It's not your job to give the person the drug, it's your job to understand why the person like demands that drug. Try to understand why the person has the headache. You're not interested in the opinion of the person, you're interested in finding the root cause why they actually demand something from you. So don't look for opinions, look for like root causes why people try to have something. Look for solid commitments, not opinions. No would you questions, they lead you like in the wrong direction. Yeah, false positives cause heartbreak. You're looking for a commitment. Best case is they give you money. They say like, really, you can solve that problem for me. Here's my money. Can I buy your solution? That's a commitment. People really want it. If not, the conversation needs to advance. So it's still not lost. Like I said, you can still get another introduction. You can still try to find out more about the problem space. Good example is a permission to contact again. So if you just ask in the end, can we meet again next week? The person says, no, I don't have time. Might be an indicator for they don't care enough about the problem. If you get a clear next meeting, that's a good idea, a good sign. If they introduce you to a decision maker that actually can buy your product, that's a good sign because they believe in what you're doing. If they commit to actually try your product, that's good. If they pre-purchase something that's not out there yet, that's a good sign. So if you have like a landing page where people are willing to pre-purchase your product, even if it's not already on the market, that's a good sign. Compliments are not commitments. Ask open-ended questions. Passing the MAM test, no questions where people easily can lie to you. Get the commitment out of the people. If you focus on these points, you will find questions that are better. And if you do many interviews, and it took me like hundreds of interviews to like kind of avoid problems, you will find some of the questions and some of the techniques yourself, and you will discover new things that I haven't discovered yet. Something like the repeat the last sentence that the people said. That's a huge like tool. And now some like practical tips on how to actually do these interviews. We do them with 2 persons. So there's the interviewee that we invite, and we have like me and another guy who can take notes. So I don't have to take notes, and I can pay attention to like how the people react to what I'm saying, and I can think about the next question, and I'm not distracted. And I also give the interviewee all my attention, and they don't think I'm doing something else. Also, it's usually better for someone to write them down on post-it notes and not typing in a computer because it's a different atmosphere. And one thing that Rob recommended that was really helpful for us is to have like one post-it note for one thought of the person. So if the person says like, sometimes it's really hard to find someone to party with, then you just write on a post-it note, sometimes hard to find another person to party with, and then you put like a sad smiley. And then you have like a post-it note with a phrase that the people actually wrote, said. That's something you can write on your landing page. It's like winning material. And you have like an indicator of that's a sad smiley. So that's emotion. You're looking for emotion. If they're happy about something, you have the happy face. If they're talking about the problem they have, you can put in the exclamation mark. If they have an obstacle, you can do brackets. You can come up with your own symbols, of course. obstacle is something you want to listen to, and an obstacle usually is something that a feature of your product can solve. Workarounds are like the wave sign. The tilde is a workaround. So if you are careful and you listen and people describe to you they have this problem and they found a workaround, that's something that you can solve through a feature, but might not be as painful anymore because they found a workaround that works for them. So sometimes it's better to focus on obstacles that they don't have a solution right now than to focus on the workaround. Selling is scary, but that's like the right part of the thing. I don't know enough about selling, but Rob definitely says it's a predictable process. If you're not good at selling, you can like get into it. Can use tools like pipedrive.com, Salesforce, where you have like a sales pipeline. It structures your process. You have like leads that you want to sell to. You have like people you contacted the first time. You have like you made a proposal. They said yes or no, so you can structure the process, make it easier for you to make the follow-ups and advance in the conversation. Another, like maybe the last tip on customer development is that if you're like in a cocktail, it calls it cocktail customer development. Sometimes you're like in a casual party type of situation and you bump into a person that's a potential customer. Also something that we did wrong. If you find a potential customer, usually what you do is like you give them your business card, you like agree to follow up, and then you never hear from that person again. Or if you're convincing, you hear from the person again. But you didn't learn, like you had an opportunity to learn. You're in front of a potential customer, you could ask them some questions, you could like talk about a problem space. And that's something that we also like did a really poor job at. It's a good trick is to always have like 3 questions in mind, like 3 open-ended questions that will help you try to understand some things you don't know yet. Because the next time you're in front of a potential user, you can talk with them about the questions. You don't have to be super prepared. You just have like 3 things you can talk about. And usually the person will find the conversation useful afterwards. Gives you a reason to talk to them. It's like trying to win people not as customers but as advisors is a good way to get them committed to something that's not ready yet. Whereas if you're trying to sell a product and win them over as customer, that's really hard because maybe at that point in time they don't want to be your customer, and then it's like an all or nothing situation. Whereas if you win people that might be your potential customers, you win them as advisors, you get more commitment from them, you get more feedback from them, and eventually chances are they will become advisors, they will become influential, they will like open up their Rolodex and help you make introductions for you. If they talk to potential customers, they will mention you. Try to win them over as advisors. It's way easier to win them as advisors than to actually get the commitment for them to have them as customers, and you will get more out of them if they are advising you than if you have a yes or no at that point in time. If they're not excited, they probably won't be your customer. So that's an easy way to measure. If you're trying to win someone as an advisor and the advisor says, I don't care, then that's a good sign because you probably wouldn't have won them as a customer. It's like a soft way to test if someone would be a customer or not without putting them on the spot. Yeah, that's the thing I mentioned about the cocktail thing. Keep 3 questions always in mind. Then you can, like, even if you're drunk, you can still talk about the 3 questions. And they will enjoy the conversation, usually. It's easier than an awkward networking situation where you say, I have this product I'm working on, you might be a potential customer, here's my business card, let's keep in touch. That's like not a conversation that I keep in my head. Yeah, it's an opportunity to learn about a new industry or your customer, find out whether people care. Form good questions, ask specifics, it's like repeating all the time. Ask about the customer, pass the demand test, write it down. Follow Rob Fitzpatrick, and like maybe share his slides, because I think too few people actually spend a lot of time in customer development area. So yeah, that's basically the customer development slide.
Guys, anyone have questions? Actually, there is one from me again in the system. I'm really curious, like, how do you actually get the customers for interviews? Because it's supposed to accelerate the process, but getting these interviews and especially it's like 2 hours.
Time. Yeah, great question.
It takes a lot of time.
So one thing that we started is a meetup. So there's like the Lean Startup Circle in Vienna. So we started a meetup about product development, and product development is like the space our product is in. So once a month or like once every 2 or 3 months, we have a meetup, and we have like 50 people at the same, like in the same room, and we can't do customer development all the time, but like it's a way to get, like, you see some of the people all the time continuously, but some new people join. So that's like a natural way to have a funnel where people come and come and come.
So then you just ask them, like, okay, can
Exactly.
you...
Yeah.
Okay,
so do you have time next week? And it's easier than to like hunt for people.
Yeah.
But like the easy solution is like go where the customers are. And for some products that's super easy. So if you're doing a product for universities, you go to the university. Sometimes there's no like location where you actually can go. Sometimes it's harder.
But doesn't it make your product very like local based? Like for example in US they might have a lot of things that you just don't learn.
So in our example we did like many customer interviews with like Viennese product companies, and they are structured in a way that Kanban is not ready for most of them. And that gave us locally biased feedback, whereas when we talked to people in San Francisco, we got like different feedback and different issues, different pain points, because the companies are structured in a different way. So that's something you need to be very cautious or like aware about, that if you ask people locally, they might be culturally biased or systematically like
So how do
biased.
you get the right spread? Like how do you get the
Great question.
someone from US, like is there some tools which like just call them on Skype, or I don't know, tweet like?
That's definitely a good approach. I'm afraid I don't have a great answer. But yeah, trying to be conscious about whom you're talking to, whether you can diversify it. Skype is definitely a good solution if you can't go there physically. All right, so that's the last slide deck. That's from another event. Like the title is a bit misleading. It's about how to build the next Facebook. It's actually not about building the next Facebook. It's more like understanding how to apply some of the things that were mentioned in the running lean thing, in the running lean slide deck, and also especially the key metrics like the R funnel, and how companies use those tools. So it's actually like a presentation. It's about the life cycle of a customer, and tries to get you thinking in terms of a life cycle of a customer. Facebook today, probably more than 800 million active users, make a ton of revenue, really successful today, but it's not how they started. So they started actually with something called Face Mesh, which was like a hot or not for university students. So they scraped, like there was the university website which had like photos of each student, and they just scraped the website, took all the pictures, and then randomly like stacked them up, and you could choose like which one is hotter. That's how Facebook started. That's like how Facebook looked like about eight or 9 years ago. Not at all like it does today. So what did they do? They shipped early. They didn't build Facebook. They didn't even build a social network. They built something that was interesting enough to engage with. You could call it a prototype, or it's a minimum viable product. And the interesting thing is they didn't start out with building the vision that they had in mind. They might not even have had a vision that is that big. If you watch like early interviews with Zuckerberg, they didn't have that Facebook in mind that they ended up with. But they had something, like they had a problem area, like connecting people, like the values and the core concepts are still like the same. They're even like distilled now and more like pure than what they were in the beginning. So the product changed a lot, but like the core concepts didn't change that much. They shipped early, they got feedback earlier. They even have that like as a mantra, ship early and often. It's like if you're going to the office, the Facebook offices, they have like huge posters with slogans in that direction, like ship early, ship often, done is better than perfect, something like that, go fast. If you ship as soon as the feature is ready, then you're shipping as fast as you can. If the feature is ready and you're waiting until the sprint ends, then you're not learning as fast as you can. If you ship as soon as a feature is ready, you can get continuous feedback, you can roll back and change things that didn't turn out like you expected it. It's really hard to focus. That's also something that's repeating like from the first slide deck. Focus on the most important problems. Sometimes you don't actually know what the most important problems are. Then maybe 10 things are most important, but it's better to not work on all the 10 things. It's more pragmatic to pick one of those and be assured that it's one of the most important things. Low-hanging fruit is something that's often overlooked. There's like changes, like I always get reminded of low-hanging fruit is when a customer like gives feedback and I think like, yeah, I know, that's so easy to change, we should have done it 1 year ago. That's low-hanging fruit. That's something that's never important enough to actually get done, but it's actually not that hard to do. So where, like, if you stack low-hanging fruit, like these small things, like button doesn't work if you click on it too much on the left side, or wording looks weird. These are changes that you can probably do in 1 hour. You can probably do them like faster than in 1 hour. But it will never be important enough to like trump big feature changes that are highly in demand. So finding a way to tackle the low-hanging fruit can give you a lot of advantages, especially because huge companies tend to also not work on the low-hanging fruit. And the low-hanging fruit usually are these small things that annoy people on a daily basis, annoy your customers that are using the product, annoy people who just joined your product. They get like the feeling that the product is not ready yet. They get the feeling that it's buggy, that people don't care about the product, and it's easy to fix. So if you can find a way to make time for the low-hanging fruit, your team, even if you have limited resources, will appear as if it has more resources than a huge company. What we are trying to do, like personally, is that once it's 6 o'clock, we try to stop working on the highly important things. So usually, like most time of the days, I worked on like things we have scheduled, and in the end of the day, where it's like you have less energy, you probably won't do a really perfect job on the highly critical important like things you already worked on the whole day. That's when we try to switch to like no-brainers. like low-hanging fruit where the solution is clear, where you don't have to be super creative, you actually know you only need to execute it, and that's something you can do like in 2 hours, so you end the day with something that you actually can ship and be proud of. So it's like a productivity hack, it's like a motivation hack, but it actually makes sure that there's always time for the things that are not important enough. Sounds simple, most companies don't do that. Example for focus is like the profile page. It's one of the most important parts of the Facebook experience, and they understood that the profile pages are really core to the user experience, and they just focus on it. It's not like they're making huge changes, but they are like focusing on improving the experience of the profile all the time. And another important experience that they have is photo upload and photo browsing. And you will also see that they improve, like, I think I don't have like screenshots for the photo experience, but if you see how they changed, how they view, like how the photo viewer works, is they had like small pictures, then they got larger and larger, then they had the overlay that dimmed out the rest of the page, so you only focus on the picture. It was like back then it was one of the fastest photo viewing experiences because you could like advance with the arrow keys, and that's something that websites that focus on photos like Flickr didn't preload pictures as aggressively as Facebook, so it was a better photo browsing experience on Facebook than it was on Flickr. Now they're hosting, like already like 2 or 3 years ago, they're hosting most of the photos, like more than any other website. And they also try to rearrange things. So usually the photos had the comments below the photo, and now you see they're beside of the photo. So you have the trigger, you watch the photo, but you have the trigger of the conversations, you read the conversations, you interact more, you comment more, you like more. It's like small changes that like evolve over time, but they're not like random changes. They're actually really conscious about them. Be bold, make bold decisions. Sometimes they are wrong, but if you don't take any risk, there won't be any learning. Same with custom development. If you always ask the same questions where you already know the answers, that feels good because you feel really smart and you already knew what the people will say. And that's also something I did wrong all the time, and probably still do wrong. I don't focus too much on the risks. Don't take enough risks. Don't spend most of the time outside of my comfort zone. I spend most of the time inside my comfort zone. So inside of your comfort zone, you don't learn much. If you want to build something great that actually works and solves problems, like where people are really like blown away how well they solve it, you need to take risks, you need to learn. Like the risk is not a negative thing, it just means you learn something you didn't know before. Sometimes you, like if you're innovative, you have to trust your gut, maybe go somewhere where no one else went before. You can't too much compare what you're trying to create with something that's already there. And one bold bet that Facebook was like against internet rule was true identity. Like before we had Facebook, there was almost no place on the web where we used true identity. And if you read many of the early critics, they write that that's the reason why Facebook won't get any traction, because they use real identity. They stuck with it and somehow they made it work. Compared to other websites that stuck with personas. Timeline, or especially the news feed, were features that they introduced that people, that caused a lot of controversy. They didn't pedal back and remove it. Timeline seems to work really well by now. Another gut feeling example is there was a company called FriendFeed that focused on you put in your social profiles like Flickr and Twitter and stuff like that, and they aggregated all of it, and they served a couple of million users, simultaneous users, on just like 5 or 8 servers. And back then it was like an incredible achievement. So the team was technically very savvy, and Facebook at the same time introduced like their platform, their APIs. And if you're like, if you have looked as a from a developer's point of view at the early Facebook APIs that they had and the documentation, you know that it was like in really bad shape. But they knew that the Facebook platform and the APIs will be long-term a really important component of the Facebook platform. So they knew they need to do something about that. They acquired FriendFeed, a small startup. Another big bold step is they made Brad Taylor, which was with FriendFeed, the CTO. So they acquired a company, brought in new talent, and actually replaced the CTO with someone new. And if you look back, that's when the Facebook platform started to actually advance. You've got like there was no longer only the PHP SDK. You got like a Python SDK. They supported more languages. They fixed a ton of bugs. They started to actually comment and reply to bug reports. They actually improved the platform a lot. Another thing that they're really behind is sharing more information. So communication for them is a key factor inside of the company. They make events like hackathons and are really open to innovation outside of from inside of the company. So it's a good example for not sticking to the plan A, where you say like, we have this problem and Facebook in the current incarnation is like our solution to the problem and we will go with that. They're open to things that improve on what they're doing at the moment. And some of the things that came out of the hackathon were the Facebook chat, the timeline, and video upload. And these things are probably some of the parts that are really advancing the Facebook platform, Facebook experience, and user acquisition. And they came from the bottom up. They were not ideas from top down. To go about a bit again into the customer life cycle. In the beginning, you acquire customers from somewhere. Question you could ask yourself is what channels do users come from? So if you already have a product, it's a worthwhile question to pursue. Where do I get all my customers from? Activation. If you get customers to your front door, that's basically acquisition. But if they open the door and actually take a look inside of the product, then you have activated them. So it's just interesting to understand how many % of the people had an initial happy experience when they came to my front door, so that they were curious enough to sign up, to engage with the product, to try it out, to sign up for a newsletter, whatever the initial conversion is. If you know where the people come from and how many of them convert to look inside of the product, then you already know two things that are really important to understand. And you will see over time whether you do better or not, and you have a starting point of asking questions and being motivated about doing customer interviews or user experience tests. Because if activation rate is 0, then you know you have a problem not in acquisition but on activation. If the activation is 80%, then you know your front door is awesome and people want to go inside, but you almost get no one to the front door. Then you know focusing on getting people to the front door might be more worthwhile than trying to make the landing page more attractive. Can give you some indications. Retentions, that's probably the key question. Do they come back? If they went in, are they sticking around? Do they come back? Do they actually use the product in the long term? If retention is good, product is good. If retention is bad, product is bad. simple as that. Referral, if they stick around and they actually like the product, do they refer it to other people? That's an interesting indicator, but also like I mentioned earlier, if you only focus on referral or actually focus too much on referral, you will build like viral loop things into the product and maybe put them directly behind the front door. Like some spammy apps have you sign up with your email address and with your email password. Then they go through your contact list and send email to all of the people in your contact list. That probably increases your acquisition rates and your referral rates, but yeah, could cause some problems if you do that long enough with a product that nobody cares about, because then you've reached all your potential customers in a few weeks and everybody hates you because you send spam emails. Actually, the Facebook growth hacking team, they formed a special team inside of Facebook that was like that had the main focus to make the product better in a way to grow the user base. They also used a very similar acquisition funnel. They track acquisition, activation, retention. They made it very a very important concept of their acquisition funnel is to not focus on referral at all. So they didn't focus or work on increasing referral. They only tried to improve on acquisition, activation, and retention. And they knew that if retention is good, people will refer the product. So they didn't focus on that, so they don't get into that dangerous territory of pushing people to refer to other people before they are happy with the product. Revenue, do they pay? Also worthwhile to measure. That's Dave McClure from 500 Startups. He basically came up with the funnel in that way. Companies like eBay used to measure customer lifecycle in a very similar way. So it's not like a hugely new concept, but Dave McClure probably is the guy who made it really popular and boiled it down to like a simple framework that people can talk about. So to give some more concrete examples, if we look at acquisition, we usually think about channels, like channels. What are channels? You can get people from newsletters, from blogs, from marketing campaigns, from the App Store. Basically, acquisition is like the topic area where you think about where do I get the people. In the beginning, Facebook used mouth to mouth. Now they're using many other techniques. But that's another thing to think about. If you're in an early stage and you don't have tons of money, some of the acquisition strategies are making more sense for you at that moment. Doesn't mean the other solutions or the other ways won't work, but there's some things that might work better for you at that point in time. And Facebook, they didn't have the product they have now, they also didn't pursue the same marketing strategies that they're doing now. Activation. If you want to improve activation, you basically ask yourself the question, what's a great initial user experience? What's the aha moment? And in some, you could say every app has an aha moment, one interaction or one feature that shows the person that this is the right product that's worthwhile to actually use the product. And sometimes you already have this feature or this aha moment inside of your app, but you people who sign up don't reach it because it's hidden or it's further down the road, or they only discover it 1 week later. And with some apps that are in the content management area, productivity apps or project management apps or customer relationship management apps, as long as you don't have any data in there, like a real project or a real list of customers, the aha moment is far away. So some apps were really smart about figuring out how to front load that aha moment by like connecting with Gmail, putting in your contacts, or if you have a task manager, just import all the tasks that you had in another task manager, just to give you like a feeling. Another like easy solution for some of these problems, something that 37 Signals called a blank slate. Sometimes you have like screens in your product that look really boring as long as there's no data in there, and you as the product person working on it all the time, you always say, and you're also using your product, you always see the product in a way that there's already data in there. So you forget what the experience was for the person who just signed up, because you're working on new features, you're already using your software, it's full of data. So it makes sense to like maybe every 2 weeks or every month just sign up again and have a blank slate. And the 37 Signals people made a really like clever, easy, low-hanging fruit solution. They just made a screenshot of an app, like of the app with full of data, and as long as you don't have any data in there, they show you the screenshot and it says like, this is a pattern, this is just a muster, something that's not there yet, so that you don't confuse it with your own data, but you get like, you logged in, you kind of get the feeling what value the app can provide for you. So you're already getting positive feedback, you're already getting like a present, whereas if you compare it to you log in and there's nothing, then you might not get the aha moment of it. So front loading the initial value, front loading the aha moment, that's where you can increase activation without actually building a ton of stuff or adding new features. Sometimes it's just like moving that feature early on, or putting a video in there that takes you a few days can have huge dramatic impact on activation rates. For Facebook, they found out that showing you people you know in the beginning, that's a key thing for activation. And that's also like if you're building, we talked about that earlier, if you're building apps on top of the Facebook platform, that's also the reason why they show you which of your friends are using that app, because it lowers the activation barrier. You already see a friend of you is using the app, so you might try it even more than if you didn't know that people you know use it. Retention, that's basically like if you solve retention, all problems go away. If you solve retention, people come back, people see value in the app, and people don't see value only in the beginning, they see it all the time. And for Facebook, they discovered like the magic number 10 friends in 7 days. If they can bring you 10 friends in 7 days, the newsfeed when you log in is interesting enough for you to stay. That's not like if you get 10 friends in 7 days, you will stay definitely, but they saw, according to like usage data, that if they can make that happen, the chance that you will stay is way, way higher than if they can't. So they focused on getting you 10 people in 7 days. And that's like a concrete target that you can give your product team. You can say, according to our usage data, we discovered if people get 10 friends in 7 days, that's worthwhile. That's our context that we want to focus on the next 2 months. What can we do to make that happen? It's also not like, usually that's not a very difficult feature to implement. It's just understanding what to do, and then you already have the requirements and the constraints where people can be creative inside of. Referral, basic question, will people tell their friends? Is it a good enough experience? Like the last sentence not true, like only happy customers will refer you. There are some like hacks that like with spamming, sending out spam emails through you, where people can refer even if they're not happy with your product. I think I don't need to explain that that's not a good idea. good examples for referrals, Dropbox, 250 megabytes if you can refer to one friend. Angry Birds, after you finish a level and they're really good at the level and get 5 stars, they will sometimes pop up the screen and prompt you to rate it in the App Store. They won't prompt you to rate in the App Store if you had only 1 star or just failed the level. If you're doing excellent on the level, they will say, rate it on the App Store, 5 stars. Same with Cut the Rope and Path. For example, if you use, also with the Facebook app, if you use the mobile Facebook and Path app, usually what they're doing is they don't prompt you to rate the app immediately. They prompt to rate the app after you came back to the app, like the 2nd time or the 3rd time, immediately after you uploaded a photo. So that's like, from their point of view, a nice experience because you took a picture was worthwhile sharing, you shared the picture, that's the point where you feel good. Because you took a cool picture, you share it with your friends, that's where you see the value in Facebook, that's the right time to ask someone to rate your app. In that way, you don't nag people to rate your app, so you get more 5-star ratings, so you get higher ratings in the App Store, you get more featured more often. So it's not only about the number of ratings, it's how can you trigger people to rate it in the right moment in time. That's like a semi-spammy thing that Facebook did. They also encourage you to sign up with your Google email account and your Yahoo account and recommend to you that you invite all your people. But at least they explain to you what's happening, and you probably won't do that if you don't think Facebook is a nice product. Another thing to think about is revenue. Some examples for revenue streams is, or for monetization models is that if you sell ebooks, it's like usually one-time payments, get money for downloads. Subscription businesses where you charge like newspaper subscriptions or software service, you charge on a continuous basis, or you have something like Facebook, where you monetize through ads or through partnerships or through a virtual currency where you can buy virtual goods from, or you have like a transaction-based model. There are different revenue models for different products. Sometimes the same products have different revenue models. Sometimes the revenue model actually dictates which kind of features you have. So it makes sense to think about the revenue model early on and not like afterwards, because it actually can have huge impact on which features you should focus on, which to skip. Ship early, learn early. Ship often, learn often. Focus on what matters. It's like you will hear that all the time. When a startup fails, you will often read, "We didn't focus." It's something that's really obvious, but it's hard to do. Think about the customer lifecycle. That's like a huge, like maybe one of the hugest things that helped me to decide which features are important to work on, because all of the time you have like 1,000 ideas that you want to work on, and some features are more important for people who are masters of your product, and some features are really important for like beginners of your product. Some features are important to get people from the landing page to actually check out your product. Some features are important for the person to come back. Some features are especially important for someone who doesn't yet know what your product is about. And some feature requests are from customers you already know and are like happy customers for like 1 month. And for me, it helps to think like in themes, whether this month I focus on making a better experience for the first kind of people, or for the latter, like people who are already happy customers. Because if you're working on 3 features at the same time, for people in different stages of your app, that's really difficult to reason about how these features will interact with each other. And sometimes you can even have effects where you work on a feature for early customers and for later customers, and the features kind of cancel themselves out, because sometimes people in the later stage are experts and missing a certain feature that they were only missing because they didn't realize it in the beginning. Sounds a bit hard to understand probably, but it's way easier to think about changes in a product if you're focusing on the beginning of the product for 1 month and then for later stages in the product. Some books that are interesting to read: Lean Startup from Eric Ries, Running Lean. Second edition is on O'Reilly. First edition is free, as far as I know. There's an awesome book on doing these customer interviews. I think it's an e-book by Brent Cooper and Patrick Blaskowitz. It's a very easy read, and it's a good guide of like what questions to ask, which questions to leave out. So if you want to look into customer development, it's like a huge time saver. And then the last book that's like totally underrated and really useful if you care about products. It's Designed for Use, and it's about user experience and different methodologies to improve user experience. And the book is really cool. It's structured in a way that it has different chapters that help you to improve features or improve your product. And each chapter has an indicator of like in which phase of feature development this method helps you. So some of the methods are like in the beginning where you don't have any code yet or don't have any design yet. And there's like ideation and post-it brainstorming things. And some things are once the feature already shipped, how can you then understand whether it works? And like many teams I've seen, and also like what we did, is using some of the techniques that are only there after you ship the feature. So we ship the feature and then we try to understand whether it worked or not. And there are actually many techniques to find out during the development process of the feature, in the idea phase, in the design phase, in the mock-up phase, where you can test and like cancel the feature or change the feature early on and learn earlier before you even ship the feature. So that's a really cool book. And Highlight is a cool product example for a minimum viable product. It's like a social discovery app where you basically only log in through Facebook, and it shows you all the people on Highlight that are near you, and it shows you what you have in common with them, which interests you have in common with them, and which people you have in common with them. And usually it's really hard to like launch these proximity apps, because if I'm using it right now, I'm using it in Vienna, and there are so few people who use that app that the app will like buzz and say there's someone near you, even though it's like he's on the other part of the city. So it's not that useful. But what they were really like smart about was that they launched it at an event called South by Southwest, and that's like an event with tech people and social media people and artists and tech nerds, and they had like the critical mass of people at one event, brought them people to download the app, and they could get the experience like it would be if the app would be successful. And funny thing was, they reached the critical mass there, and if you go to San Francisco now, the app will buzz all the time. And I had like interesting conversations, like for example with the guy from Google who's responsible for user experience in the Gmail app. He asked me like, have you already seen the new Gmail app? I said yes, and we talked about the Gmail app. So it's a really interesting way to find people. It's a really good example for a product that has like feature-wise doesn't do much, but they released it very, very early, only with a small feature set, kind of worked around the problem that they only can release it like in a big bang with huge marketing because they need to reach the critical mass. They were so smart that they said, we don't actually need that. And if we launch globally at the same time, we would need too much money, and if the product is not good, like all the money is burned. So they are really smart about having that event, motivated people to download it at the event. Back at the event, it was not as good as